surprised my girlfriend with gifts, heard her mock me, and she trashed my house after the breakup. I came home early with flowers and wine to celebrate my girlfriend's new job, only to overhear her tearing me apart to her best friend. When I broke up with her, she destroyed my house. And that was just the start of the chaos. A couple of years ago, I was in a relationship that I thought was going pretty well. My girlfriend, Sarah, and I had been together for about 2 years. We met through mutual friends, hit it off, and things moved fast. She was fun, outgoing, and always had a way of making people laugh. I'm more of a quiet guy, but I liked how she brought energy to my life. We'd moved in together after a year, sharing a small house I'd been renting. It wasn't perfect. We had our disagreements, but I figured we were building something solid. Sarah had just landed a new job at a marketing firm, which was a big deal for her. She'd been stressed about finding something stable, so I was proud of her and wanted to celebrate. I decided to surprise her. I'd been working long hours at my job in IT, but I managed to get off early one day. I stopped by a store on the way home, picked up some flowers, her favorite chocolates, and a nice bottle of wine. I even got a little card to write her a note about how proud I was. The plan was to set up a small celebration at home, maybe order her favorite takeout. I was excited, picturing her face when she saw the setup. I got home around mid-afternoon, earlier than she'd expect, and noticed her car was already in the driveway. I figured she must have come home early too, which made it even better for the surprise. I walked up to the house quietly, not wanting to give it away. The front door was unlocked, and I could hear voices from the living room, Sarah's and someone else's. I recognized the other voice as her best friend, Mike. They'd known each other since college, and he was around a lot. I never thought much of it. She always said he was like a brother to her. I paused in the hallway, holding the flowers and bag of stuff, ready to walk in and make a big entrance. But then I heard what they were saying, and it stopped me cold. Sarah was laughing, saying something about how I'd been clueless about some work project I'd told her about. She said I wasn't the sharpest guy, that I got by on effort but didn't have much going on upstairs. Mike laughed too, and then she kept going. She started talking about my body, saying I'd let myself go, that I was soft, and not her type at all. She said she stayed with me because I was reliable, but she wished I was more like Mike. Fit, confident, actually interesting. I stood there, frozen, feeling my face get hot. The flowers felt heavy in my hand. I wasn't ripped or anything, but I didn't think I was in bad shape. And the stuff about my intelligence? That cut deep. I'd always been there for her, supported her through job rejections, listened to her vent. To hear her talk like that to someone she was so close to made me feel like I didn't even know her. I didn't walk in. I couldn't. I backed out quietly, went to my car, and just sat there for a while, trying to process it. Part of me wanted to confront her, but I was too angry, too hurt. I drove to a friend's place, still holding the stupid flowers and wine. I told him what happened, and he said I deserved better, that I should end it. I knew he was right, but I needed a day to think. I stayed at his place that night, ignoring Sarah's texts, asking where I was. The next morning, I went back home, ready to talk. I wasn't sure if I'd break up with her right away, but I needed to know if she meant what she said. When I got there, Sarah was in the kitchen, acting normal, like nothing was wrong. She asked why I didn't come home, and I just laid it out. I told her I'd come back early to surprise her, heard her talking to Mike, and heard everything she said about me. Her face changed. She went pale, then started stammering, saying it was just a joke, that she didn't mean it. I asked why she'd say those things if she didn't mean them, especially to Mike. She got defensive, saying I shouldn't have eavesdropped, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. That's when I knew I was done. I told her we were over, that I couldn't be with someone who talked about me like that behind my back. She started crying, begging me to reconsider, but it didn't feel real. I packed a bag and left to stay with my friend again. I thought that was it. I figured I'd move out, we'd split our stuff, and I'd move on. But a few days later, I got a call from my neighbor. He said I needed to get to the house fast. When I pulled up, I couldn't believe what I saw. The front windows were smashed, my clothes were thrown all over the yard, and the furniture inside was trashed. Couches slashed, dishes broken, my laptop cracked. Sarah had lost it. My neighbor said she'd shown up the night before screaming, throwing things, and left before anyone could stop her. I called her, furious, but she didn't pick up. I was left standing in the wreckage of my own home, wondering how things had gone so wrong so fast. The sight of my house in ruins was something. Clothes strewn across the lawn, broken glass everywhere, and my furniture ripped apart. It was unreal. I walked through the mess trying to wrap my head around it. My neighbor filled me in on what he'd seen. Sarah showed up late at night, yelling, smashing things, and peeling out in her car. He'd called the cops, but she was gone before they got there. I was shaking, angry, but also just numb. I'd ended things with her because of what she said, but I never expected this. I tried calling her again, no answer. I left a voicemail telling her she'd gone too far, that she needed to explain herself. She didn't call back. I spent the rest of the day salvaging what I could. My laptop was toast, screen cracked, keys popped off. Most of my clothes were either torn or covered in mud. The couch I'd saved up for was slashed, stuffing spilling out, dishes were shattered, and even some old photos I kept on a shelf were ripped up. It wasn't just the stuff. It was the violation of my space. This was my home, and she'd turned it into a war zone. My friend, Chris, came over to help. He was as shocked as I was, saying I needed to press charges. I wasn't sure yet. I just wanted to clean up and figure out my next move. We bagged up the broken stuff, boarded up the windows, and I called my landlord to explain. He was pissed but said he'd work with me on repairs since I'd been a good tenant. That night, I crashed at Chris's place again. I couldn't sleep, replaying everything. Sarah's words to Mike, the breakup, now this. I wondered if I'd missed signs, if she'd always been capable of something this extreme. We'd had arguments before, but nothing like this. She'd get mad, maybe snap a little, but then she'd apologize and we'd move on. This was different. I checked my phone hoping for some kind of message from her, maybe an apology or explanation. Nothing. But I did notice she'd blocked me on social media. That stung, like she was erasing me after destroying my stuff. The next day, I went to the police station. I filed a report, showed them pictures of the damage, and gave them my neighbor's statement. The officer said they'd try to contact Sarah, but without hard proof she was the one who did it, like video or her admitting it. There wasn't much they could do. I gave them her number and address, though I wasn't sure if she was even staying at her friend's place anymore. I left feeling frustrated, but glad I'd at least started the process. When I got back to the house, I started sorting through more of the wreckage. That's when I found a note crumpled under the kitchen table. It was Sarah's handwriting, short and scrawled. "You shouldn't have left me." No apology, no explanation, just that. It made my skin crawl. I showed it to Chris, who said it was proof she'd been there. I took it to the police and they added it to the report, but they still said it wasn't enough to arrest her. I spent the next week trying to piece my life back together. I replaced my laptop, bought some new clothes, and worked with my landlord on fixing the house. Insurance covered some of it, but I was still out a lot of money. Friends pitched in where they could, and Chris let me stay with him as long as I needed. I kept expecting Sarah to show up or call, but she didn't. I heard through a mutual friend that she'd moved in with Mike temporarily. That hit hard. Not because I thought anything was going on, but because it was Mike she'd been talking to when she trashed me. It made me wonder what else she'd said about me, who else she'd told. I tried not to dwell on it, but it was tough. Then about 2 weeks after the incident, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Sarah. She said she was sorry for the house, that she'd lost it after the breakup. She wanted to meet, to talk things out. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted answers, but another part didn't trust her. I showed the text to Chris, and he said not to meet her alone, that she'd already shown how far she'd go. I agreed, but texted her back, saying I wasn't ready to talk and that what she did was unforgivable. She didn't reply. I saved the text for the police, hoping it'd help if things escalated. As I started rebuilding, I realized how much the breakup and her actions had shaken me. I'd trusted Sarah, thought we were good together, and finding out how she really felt, then seeing her destroy my home, made me question everything. I wasn't sleeping well, kept checking my locks, worried she'd come back. Friends said I should focus on moving forward, but it wasn't that simple. I was angry, embarrassed, and just tired. I knew I'd done the right thing ending it, but the aftermath was a mess I hadn't signed up for, and I had a feeling it wasn't over yet. Dealing with the fallout from Sarah trashing my house was exhausting, but I was trying to move forward. I'd been staying with Chris, slowly fixing up the place with my landlord's help. Insurance covered some repairs, but I was still replacing things like my laptop and clothes out of pocket. The police had the report, the note Sarah left, and her text admitting to the damage, but they said it was unlikely she'd face serious consequences unless she confessed in person. It frustrated me, but I didn't have the energy to push harder. I just wanted to put it behind me. Sarah hadn't reached out again after her text, and I hoped that meant she was done causing trouble. I was wrong. About a month after the incident, I started hearing from mutual friends that Sarah was telling a different story. She'd been saying I'd been controlling, that I'd overreacted to a joke she made with Mike, and that I'd kicked her out without warning. She even claimed I'd damaged the house myself to frame her. I couldn't believe she was spinning it like that. A couple of friends believed me right away, especially after I showed them the note and the text, but others seemed unsure, saying Sarah was really upset and not herself. It stung that anyone would buy her version after what she did. I stopped talking to those mutual friends, figuring I didn't need people who'd doubt me like that. Then things got weirder. I started getting random calls from unknown numbers, hanging up when I answered. Once someone left a voicemail, just heavy breathing, no words. I couldn't prove it was Sarah, but it creeped me out. I also noticed my email was acting strange, like someone had tried logging in. I changed all my passwords, added two-factor authentication, and started keeping a closer eye on my accounts. Chris said I should get a security camera for the house, so I did, setting it up to record the front door and yard. I wasn't taking any chances. One day, I got a call from my landlord. Someone had spray painted the side of the house. Nothing legible, just a mess of red paint. The camera caught a figure in a hoodie, but it was too dark to make out a face. I reported it to the police and who added it to the file but said it wasn't enough to pin on anyone. I was starting to feel paranoid, like Sarah was still out there trying to mess with me. I didn't know why she'd keep going after the breakup, but it felt personal, like she wanted to make sure I didn't move on. I decided to reach out to Mike. I wasn't sure if it was a good idea, but I needed to know if he was involved or if he'd talk some sense into her. I messaged him, keeping it calm, saying I just wanted to understand what was going on. He replied, saying he didn't know about the house until after it happened and that Sarah had been in a bad place. He said he'd tried to get her to chill out, but she was angry about the breakup. He didn't apologize for what she'd said about me to him, which annoyed me, but he did say he'd talked to her about backing off. I didn't know if I could trust him, but it was something. A few weeks later, I moved back into the house. The repairs were mostly done, and I'd replaced enough stuff to make it livable. I was still on edge, but the security camera helped. Life started feeling a little normal again. I was focusing on work, hanging out with friends who'd stuck by me, and even went on a couple of casual dates. It wasn't easy. Trusting someone new felt hard after everything, but I was trying. Then, out of nowhere, Sarah emailed me. It was long, saying she was sorry for everything, that she'd been dealing with personal stuff and snapped when I ended things. She said she wanted to pay for the damages and meet to clear the air. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted closure, but another part didn't trust her intentions. I talked it over with Chris and a couple of other friends. They all said to be careful, that she'd already shown she could go too far. I replied to her email, keeping it short. I said I appreciated the apology but wasn't ready to meet, and if she wanted to pay for damages, she could work it out with my landlord. She didn't respond, and I didn't hear from her again. The random calls stopped, and there were no more incidents at the house. Maybe Mike got through to her, or maybe she just moved on. I'll never know for sure. Looking back, the whole thing taught me a lot. I'd ignored red flags with Sarah, like how she'd deflect blame or snap when things didn't go her way. I trusted her too much, thinking her words to Mike were a one-off when they probably weren't. It took time, but I started rebuilding my confidence. I'm still in the house, making it my own again. I'm dating someone new now, taking it slow, and I'm careful about who I let in. The experience with Sarah left scars, but it also showed me I could handle more than I thought. I'm not looking back anymore, just focusing on what's ahead.